Welcome, sweet souls, to another episode of the It's All Happening podcast. I know that I say this every single time, but it has just become more and more evident the way that God and spirit and life is moving through the platform of this show and the people that I get to connect with, to invite on to platform their stories, to have these conversations, to exchange realities with, that are really big and really important conversations. So I am so excited today to invite onto the show Danny Lesslie. This is a guest that I found his content so randomly and was so touched by the first piece that I saw that it sent me into one of those like really soul nourishing scroll holes. Realized that he was writing a book about his story, bought the book about his story, and in the process of doing that, just shot my shot into his DMs of like, hey, do you want to come and talk about your experience and your story here on the It's All Happening podcast? And something I'm finding is I get so much joy and gratitude out of uplifting voices who have such a powerful story to share. So I am so excited to get into this conversation. Danny Lesslie is someone who has very recently gone through one of the biggest depths of grief that you can in a lifetime. And I'm going to let him take the lead on that story. But throughout this portal of grief, he's also created a body of work that we are going to talk about in depth today. And that I'm so excited to see the ways that it is reached out into the world and the hands that it lands in and the hearts that it gets to touch. So without further ado, introducing Danny Lesslie, who is a girl dad, a widow, and a personal life coach who is in the process as we speak of getting his first book about grief and about this story that we're going to dive into today out into the world. So Danny, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate the opportunity, and like I said, I wish it was under different circumstances, but we get what we get, and so we're here, and that's
Yeah. So let's just start. Let's start where I mean, not where your story begins, but where the creation of this book started, with what it is
yeah.
that you are moving through right now in your life.
So my wife passed 6 months ago, about 6.5 in December of 24, 12/12/24, which is a crazy date for many reasons. But she was diagnosed with vulvar squamous cell carcinoma in August of 2020, and she was magnificent. She was just such a wealth of joy, and here we go. So much love, and she gets this disease, and ultimately the disease took her. So our story was, we met in California. We met, out there, got married, had our daughters. She was the type of person that when we met, we knew it was over. She was my person. It was our first date. We were like, when are we going to have kids? There was no, it was just full steam ahead. And she went to the doctor and had this mass, and knew that there was something wrong. And the doctor said, you need to get it removed. So we did. We went right to the doctor and had the surgery. And I remember waiting there, as she's recovering. And if you've ever been a part of someone going into surgery, you're just worried in the waiting room. You have no idea what to expect. And then the doctor calls me into the little room because she was done. And she came out and she said, hey, Raffi's not with me. She's in recovery. And she goes, we did a radical vulvectomy, which is like the bigger, stronger version of the surgery, right? They're either going to do a vulvectomy or a radical one. And she said the mass was cancerous, and we had no thoughts that it was cancerous before that. And so then it was on me to tell her that there was cancer after she came to. And that conversation like broke us into a whole new reality that neither one of us ever saw coming. And she was such a strong, vibrant woman. Like ran track as a kid, was so fast, so strong, and just it was unbelievable to watch this thing just like keep attacking her, and just it was heartbreaking. So through the course of the years, as kind of the ebbs and flows of this cancer, we battled for 5 years, and we decided that all of this pain, it was impossible that there was all this pain and that no light was going to come from all of this, because there was so much struggle and so much pain. And it was 1,592 days since she was diagnosed until the day she passed. And I always tell people, like, if you had to tap a pen 1,592 times, you would stop before you got there. And she woke up in pain that many days and was still a loving mother and a loving wife and joyful and creating things. And it's like, what kind of person is able to do this? And so we did, when we're talking about this light coming from this time in our lives, we wanted to write a book together, and we just very, very much ran out of days. And so that was kind of like the genesis of all of this path, right? And like I said, we lost her in December, and we're just day by day.
Yeah.
There's
Wow.
so much inside of the story, but that's like a summary of sorts.
Yeah, just to bring the listeners into the reality of what it is that you've
Yeah,
been navigating, not only for the past 6 months since she passed, but 5 years since
yeah,
everything in your life changed around this news. And
yeah,
I find it so incredible, the strength and the power of the human spirit and the human soul,
it's
as you're
incredible.
talking about the strength and the power that your wife had through all of this, and
Yeah,
being in such awe and wonder of that. And I personally am in just so much awe and wonder of the strength and power it's taking for you to do what it is that you are doing, to channel all of this pain into actually creating that
yeah,
book that you guys said that you were going to write. So I'd love to begin to steer the conversation a bit in that direction. Can you
yeah.
talk about the book and
Sure.
how that originated and how it's coming together?
Yeah. So, like I said, it was in 21, which is that would be her after she was recovering from the initial surgery, and then had another mass come and start growing in that time. And through all that, we decided that we wanted to do a book, and just never quite got there. But the one thing that happened over the course of those 5 years was I've been writing about things for a long time in my life, and so had she. So she was writing the whole time, throughout this, and journal entries about this and that, and how she was feeling and the experience and all those things. And it's funny because after she passed, and I got this kind of idea to do it. I started to look through her entries, and I was learning things. I mean, I was there the whole time, but it wasn't. She was writing from her perspective, of course, and so when I would read her words, it was a different way of looking at an experience, and so somewhere in that time, I decided that I was going to take her words and just drop them in a 5 year timeline. And then, naturally it told a story, but it was a kind of a sparse story, right? There were spaces missing. So I took my words from in the moment. So each of us were writing like while these things were going on, which I believe captures like an angst and a struggle that you can't recall. In the moment, if you can put down what's inside of you on paper, I don't think you can go back and capture it the same way you do inside that space. So when I was putting it together, I took as much as I could from our journeys and stuck them into a timeline. So what you had have is a story being told, a very informal story of from her point of view and my point of view of the same experience. So it's kind of a cool way to do it. And then, but there were holes very naturally in that. And so I went back as a narrator and stitched those things together and then put, a patch here, a patch there, kind of to make the story flow a little better. And there were so many moments in our story where God was there. Like there's just no question. And I'll tell you a couple of them and here in a minute, but those there were 50 of them or 60 or 80 of them. There's so many. And so I included a bunch of those in the story as well. So, and then after I had entered those in, a very close friend of mine, a pastor, gave me Bible verses to match every one. So literally what you have is you have Raffi's voice, you have my voice, and then you have God's voice telling a story, which is his story, right? We were just sitting front row for it, right? And so there were like, here's an example of one of the stories. So Raffi needed to get a blood test, or she wanted to get a blood test, and she couldn't find it anywhere. We were living in Kansas at the time. The blood test was going to give her some marker of her cancer, which we couldn't seem to find, which is crazy. It was a very rare cancer for someone her age to have, and couldn't find it. And believe me, she's a researcher. She could find something if you could find it. Well, couldn't find it, and this was like a year she had searched for it. And then I was trying to figure out how we were going to afford this life because like cancer care is not cheap. And if even the care, supplements, travel, like all the things are just literally just lighting money on fire all the time. And we just didn't have a lot of money. So I put up a GoFundMe, which was probably the second GoFundMe of 3 or 4 that we did. And when I put that up, a mentor of mine shared that. And this mentor, I have gone to a Bible study with him and some other men for a long time. And one of the guys that's in that Bible study sends me this long text. And he says, "Hey man, I work at an office here in town," and he mentioned all the things that they have, and that blood test was in there. I was like, I didn't mention the test in the GoFundMe. No one knew that we needed this. This is a conversation between me and Raph. And so I was like, "Hey babe, look at this." And so we're like, let's get it done. So the next day we go in to get this blood test done. Get it done. It sends the test off to Greece to get the results, which is like crazy. And then I get a message like, "Hey man, here's the bill for the blood test. It's $8,000. It's like, well, we don't have $8,000. We might be, we're $7,900 short, right? We're not even close, And but we committed. We already did it, so we owe the money, and they were able to give us a discount. So I was like, cool, like an employee type discount or something, or friend of the practice or something like that. And so it's like $6,300, and I was like, cool, we don't have it. I appreciate the gesture, but we don't have it. And I was just sitting there with Raffi, and we were just like sweating it, like we don't have the money to pay for this thing that we already got that we need. And then Raffi's phone goes off, and one of her best friends knows nothing about any of this, mind you. This is not related at all. Says, "Hey, my church decided that they were going to give this month's tithe to your family." And it was $6,300.
Full body chills.
So you can't, I mean, you could say that's not God, but I don't believe it, And so then come to find out, this is 4 years later, this pastor of this church that did that was very supportive of us in this whole journey. Come to find out, he spoke at her celebration of life, and he said, I just was recalling with him all of these things, and he goes, we decided as a congregation to give like in a wild fashion, like give way more than we should. Like if you looked at the books and you're like, okay, we should give $1,000, we're going to give 6,300. Like just be like over the top it. And our family was the first one to receive that. And I was like, So in those moments, and there were so many of them, it became undeniable. The stack of evidence was like, there's just we would go to the cancer center and in Atlanta, and we were there. We're sitting in this waiting room at a cancer center, which you can imagine is a very, very sad and somber place to be, right? There's caretakers and there's the people that are suffering, getting treatment, and a lot of the caretakers are not in good health, anyways. It's just it's a different experience, and we're sitting there, and these two women walk out of this elevator, and I'm telling you, it was like if you were to picture in your mind like the colors and the vibrancy of like a tribal dance in like somewhere in Africa. Like they were reds and golds and just they were so vibrant and laughing and so happy. They walked right over past all of these people to Raffi, and they prayed for her, and then they left. They didn't say anything to anybody. And I was like, what just happened? Because we're the youngest ones in here. There are people in here that are everyone's suffering, right? But it's like what is the why up? You know what I'm saying? And it's like it's one of
Mhm.
those moments you're like, there's just no explaining it outside of God. And we had the same thing happen. We were gonna go to Scottsdale and for treatment, and it was the lady literally told us like it was gonna be like $200,000, and there's no insurance, they don't take it, and we were like, we don't have any money, and we committed to do it, and I promise you, 10 days later, after GoFundMe, there was almost all that money in our account. It it's these are things that are so far outside of my capability. Like I got fired twice in this. God was like, I'm just going to take away your job two times, and took away a house one time, and still made all this happen. I was like, I cannot claim any responsibility. The only thing I just watched it happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just there. So we just we both wanted to tell the story so much because it's remarkable, and
Yeah.
and she's remarkable. I mean, it like you could. I always tell people like if there was 100 adults in a room and you let 20 busloads of kids go outside of this room, they would all be sitting at her feet in like 5 minutes.
Oh,
She was magic with kids. I mean, it was, I mean, it was unreal, and so yeah, but there's so much, but
yeah. I would love to hear just a little bit from your perspective of what was both your wife's and maybe together in your union relationship with God like prior to all of these things
okay, yeah,
happening.
that's a good question. So I grew up Lutheran, like did the religion thing, like went to church, baptized a couple times, confirmation, like all the things you get gold stars for in religion, right? I was doing all
All
those
the
things.
boxes we check.
Yeah, but I hadn't made it. It wasn't in my heart. Would be the best way to say it, I guess. Met my wife. She came from a very diverse background. Wasn't what you, but she had a spirituality to her that was unshakable. Now, I would say that it wasn't necessarily pointed at Jesus, but it was this like connection. Like she is like one of the earth, like barefoot all the time, wants to be in the ocean. Like she is connected, And I remember thinking, is this a problem that she, isn't looking to Jesus? And I was like, you know what? I don't think it's not a problem. I love her. I'm in. And so over the course of this time, because of the pain and because of the struggle and because of our just clear lack of control, we started to look to Jesus. And she had a couple things where she did a lot of work, a lot of internal work, a lot of just she taught breath work. You would love her. She did so many modalities of work internally, and she was at a treatment one time, an energetic thing, and she came back and she told me she was talking about how she was, in this space, and she felt her head was in Jesus' hands. And there's no points for her to tell me that. Like it's not like her telling me that is going to make me love her more. Like she's not one to lie, but if she said it, it happened. She's not one to like sugarcoat anything. So there was that, and there were so many more things. And then, there were, so we began to look to him together. And in this journey, I learned that the whole game is about your relationship with him. It's not about going to church. It's not about your arms up when you sing. It's not, it is your relationship with Jesus, and that is the game. And when that became clear to me and it was clear to her, everything was different. And I'm not going to say it fixed everything because it didn't. And she's, with him now. She's not here with me. But it changed everything. And when she died, I wasn't mad at God, which is weird, but it's true. It was so obvious to me that he's been there the whole time. And now I have questions for him, but I'm not mad at him. I'm not holding that against him. And if it wasn't for him and what I've seen and what I've experienced, I'd probably just be sunburnt in a ditch somewhere. Because when everything you want goes away and you wake up the next day, big, big questions show up in your life. And if God isn't the answer to those, I don't know what you would do. Because the pain isn't worth it. It's too much pain. Like, I don't know how you would deal with it if you didn't have more to look forward to. If you didn't have, I don't know how you would reconcile it. And that was just such a gift to have that experience together. We had times where we had a problem, we prayed together, and the next morning it was answered.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that. And without all of that, I don't know how I'd even be here. I don't know.
Yeah. That being like the biggest, the only answer to all of the questions that go completely unanswered, right? The like mystery to
It
all of
is.
it.
You think everything's good until, I always tell people, it's like until the unlayering comes into your life. And the problem is we're all going to lose everything. And, you know, I've seen no money to a lot of money to no money. I've seen house, job to no house, no job. I've seen it, and it's like, so what do you do? Because, there has to be a union from you to something greater. There
Mm-hmm.
has to be.
Yeah.
And if there's not, I think that's where the real dilemma comes from. And yeah, and I think I was just presented with these questions. I've been forced into these things, right? I've like been forced to stumble into these questions, and I can't be like, yeah, I figured this all out. Like, no, I've got forced. Like I wasn't, um, and I would give all of the knowledge to have her back.
Mm-hmm. Of
And I'd give it
course.
all. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's not where we are. So
Right. And being willing to see what you have received through that loss, it almost also becomes like another lifeline, right? I'd give up all the knowledge, but knowing that you did receive the knowledge through this process. And I just want to take a moment to go back to just kind of the weaving of both of your spiritual stories, how you said like you grew up Lutheran and did
yeah,
all the things and were religious, but it wasn't in your heart. And then how you met this woman who was like so connected to the spirit of
yeah,
the earth and just energy, and even having that brief moment of like, it's not okay that she's not looking to Jesus, but then through each other's, like, your your
Yeah.
story inside of religion, and then falling in love with you, and the pain of the process that you guys had to go through, being like what your souls came here so that you could come closer home to Jesus. And I just really appreciate that perspective that you've
Yeah.
offered to the listeners of like, it's not about church, it's not about throwing your hands up and worshiping, it's not about following a set of rules, it's about your individual relationship
Yeah.
with him. Because I have found that, and like, I am much more probably on the side of where your wife came from, of being so in touch with the earth and spirit. And still, I've had very, I was just like nodding away at that story you told about her going to an experience and feeling Jesus holding her head. Because through my own spiritual experiences, even though I'm very connected energetically and psychically, it's like Jesus is always
Yeah.
there, and always has been there. And navigating the personalization, the individualization of what that relationship gets to look like in a world that is constantly trying to tell you what it's supposed to look like, and the
Yeah.
reality of only coming home to a true relationship, to that when you go through the things in your life that kind of force you into it, versus
Yeah.
just ticking the boxes.
Yeah. I mean, I viewed marriage as a destination when I was younger. She didn't want to get married. She wanted to have kids. She didn't want. She knew she was going to be a mother. She's an amazing mother. Um, and when she met me, she wanted to get married, and I fell in love with her. And I would say that I lost control because I just loved her, and I was just smitten with her, and that's the reason I have so many videos of her, because I just wanted to capture like whatever it was. Like I was mesmerized by her. I still am. Um, so that's why I was like, have all these videos, because and over the course of us being together, we learned that it's not about the marriage. Like having a ring, like, isn't the thing. It's like, it's that you wake up and choose each other. And I feel very fortunate that I married someone, made it official with a person that chose to choose me. And I just chose to choose her. And that's what we did. And it was every day. Like, I was like, regardless, I was like, I will take care of you for 50 more years if this cancer lasts 50. I don't care. Like, I'll run it into the ground. Like, if we die doing it, fine. I died, but that was the decision that you just make that decision, and yeah, it was just, it's crazy. And then in that, you know, God used her to get in my heart. I think he knew that he needed to use her to get me, which is funny because of my conversation I had earlier. But I always laugh. It's like, man, because if it wasn't for her journey, I don't know that I would have had my journey,
Yeah.
and so, um, that's just where we are.
Yeah, the beautiful synchronicity of how that weaves. And like, what I hear you saying is, of course, of course, of course, honoring the depth of grief and the depth of pain, and the longing for, I would give it all up just to go
Yeah, in a
to have
second.
her back,
Yeah,
while also taking the things that you have learned in the journey you've been on, then the connection to God in your heart that has been cultivated through all of this, to
yeah,
what I really see it as is like doing God's work, like creating something that comes through that connection to God, which
yeah,
is what I'm so excited to witness and receive in your book as it
yeah.
comes out.
So there's a cool story I want to tell you, and
Yeah.
from what you've told me about yourself, I think you'll appreciate this. So in after she passed, there's a woman that I went to high school with, different ages, that has resurfaced in my life because she lost her husband. So there's now we have this like connection that many people don't have, right? And after Raffi passed, she said, "Hey, can I send you a book?" And was like, "Sure," because she's been in this, right? She knows what is happening. I was like, "That's cool, yeah, great." Well, she sends me a book called Signs. Have you heard of that book?
What's it called? Signs?
Signs.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Signs is by a woman named Laura Lynn Jackson. She's a psychic medium, which immediately I was like, hold on, red flag. Like I admit I was like, I don't know if this is what I want to read, because like I didn't put that on the God side of the equation, right? But I trust the woman that sent it to me, so I was like, cool, I'll read it. In the book, Laura Lynn Jackson talks about that her 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 abilities are just a skill set, right? And just much like a bricklayer is good at laying bricks, she's good at what she does, right? You could also throw a brick through a window, like
Right.
she uses her abilities for, let's say, the godly side of things, right? And she expressed in the book that your person that crosses is, she says, part of your team of light is what she calls it. That and and then they belong to like a team like of angels and archangels, and they're there kind of guiding you through this earthly physical experience, at the top of whom sits God. So I was like, cool, like I'm cool with that, right? She's has a tilt towards God. I'm cool. That's cool. So I read the book, and when I'm reading the book, the thing that was it was felt like it was carving me from the inside out was that I didn't feel Raffi's presence anymore, right? Obviously, because she wasn't there, right? But it was really like it was wearing me out, on the inside, and I couldn't come to terms with it. And this was months after she had passed away, and so the house feels very empty, and with the kids, it's just oh, it's so terrible. But in this book, it says, well, if you want to communicate with them, or more or less, let's receive the messages that they're sending you. And her contention is that they're always sending us messages. It's just they don't exist in the same physical space as us, which seems to obviously be true, right? So I was like, okay, cool. What do I have to do? And she says, ask for them to communicate with you. So it's like, cool. Ralph, will you please communicate with me? Like, I just want to feel your presence, right? And then it says, decide how the communication should happen. I was like, all right, well, her favorite animal is an elephant. So I was like, there's probably going to be an elephant. Like, either it's going to be on my phone, or an elephant's going to walk by, or there's a sticker, or, whatever. And then, domestic duties happen. I had to cook dinner and I forgot. Well, then about 2 hours later, I get this message from a friend who it was a very close, like, soul sister of hers, who I've talked to. We talk every once in a while, but not all the time. And she sends me this lyric, or I'm sorry, it's a TikTok. And do you know who Brandon Lake is?
Brandon Lake, yeah.
Okay, great singer, right? I love the
Yeah.
guy. Um, it's one of his songs, and it's "Don't You Give Up on Me," and he's singing this part. It's like, "Don't lose your faith, or don't lose hope, don't lose faith. That's where your fight is." And he says all of these lines, and literally, I tell you that the things he's saying are words spoken to my heart to the things I've not told anyone, which is incredible because this girl, this woman that sent me these, does not know what is going on. I don't think anyone knew. If anyone could know, it would have been Raffi, even if I would have told her. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, there's no way. And then she sends me these lines of text that literally sound like Raffi's words coming to me. And I said, why did you send me these? Like, thank you. Like, it was amazing, but why? And she goes, I just felt like I was supposed to. Like, what does that mean? That doesn't make any sense because I hadn't talked to her in weeks. Like, it was just like on a Tuesday, she's like, hey, I'm going to send Danny these messages. Like, it's crazy. So I was kind of blown away. And, and I was like, all right, maybe she is communicating with me, right? And then I ended up going to bed. And then the next morning, I wake up to another message from another friend who has the same name, different friend, also very close to Raffi, with some illness stuff. And she says, hey, I don't know if this is too early or not, but I wanted to connect you with this guy. He lost his wife in 2020. After he lost his wife, he has 3 kids. After he lost his wife, he wrote a book and he started his own publishing company. And I was like, oh, that's weird because she doesn't know, actually, no one knows, that 3 days prior, I started writing this book that is now published. She has no idea. She also doesn't know that I called another friend of ours weeks before asking publishing questions. She also doesn't know that Raffi and I wanted to write a book together. I don't think she knows that. But either way, like the timing, like she has no idea. And I was like, hold on. Like, and she also has no idea that the only thing that I can think in my mind to expend my life energy on is this book. I don't want to do anything. Like I'm barely able to cook food for my kids. I'm barely, I can't life right now at all. Like I just have no bandwidth. And so I'm reading this message and I'm blown away because I got the message the night before. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like typing back a response to her, like kind of explaining like how remarkable this message is. And then I see the three little dots appear. It's on Instagram. And I was like, all right, I'll wait. And she goes, oh, I forgot to tell you. When my friend passed away, the day she passed away in 2020, when I got the message, I was with Raffi. And we were at the elephant exhibit at the zoo. Dude, no one knows. No one knows that the elephant thing happened. No one knows that the hey, talk to me thing happened. No one knows. I've told no one. And that's what happens.
Yep.
So that Blue Hat Publishing is who published the book.
Oh my God.
So there's an elephant on the back of the book, on the back cover, and that's why the elephant is there.
That is such an incredible story. And it just, I mean, I hear you and you're saying like nobody knew, nobody, you're speaking my language. Like I am all about
No one
signs,
knew.
synchronicities, and the
No one
way
knew.
that
No one knew.
that God comes through and your willingness to I love how this conversation is weaving and you bringing up the piece of like getting this book called Signs and a psychic medium and the like that's not of God that
Yeah.
we've been taught inside of religion and the reality of bringing it back to that personal relationship we have with God and spirit. And I love what you talked about, like her just being, it is just a craft. And that's how I feel about the work that I do. And it,
Yeah.
it has been demonized and looked down upon, even though I'm always talking about God and Jesus and my relationship to all of it. And you bringing in that piece of like, you could be a bricklayer who does beautiful brickwork and you could still throw a brick through a window if you
Right.
are working from a dark energy, that it's all about the intention of where it's coming from and what you're connecting into. And how beautiful to just open your heart to, from that moment of like, I don't know if I want to receive this, to that unwinding into your heart opening enough to begin receiving those messages from her. And in such a wild that it's like the
Well,
messages started coming through in a different way and
well,
then
it's
the elephant
interesting.
came later.
The way you said that, I don't know if you've seen the Rumi quote, but it's so good. And it's the wound is where the light enters.
Excuse me while I briefly interrupt my own episode here to offer you a really special invitation into something that I am so excited about. This fall, myself and my co-host, Jen Maroney, are going to be taking an intimate group of 8 women to Tuscany for a 7-day, all-inclusive energy healing, embodiment, and adventure retreat. I mean, we are bringing together the most perfect combination of healing, of connection, of play, of creation, and of adventure all over the rolling hills of Tuscany. So if you are a woman who is finding yourself loving this podcast, being pulled deeper into this work, moving through an awakening within yourself, I want to cordially, personally invite you to drop down into the show notes, click the link, check out our landing page, and book yourself a call to this retreat. And just because you are a listener of the It's All Happening podcast, I would absolutely love to offer you $300 off of this experience. Our applications are going to be open until the end of June. We are at the end of May right now, so you have just about 4 more weeks to get inside of this experience. If you are feeling yourself pulled forward towards what it is that I am talking about right now, if you have been looking for in-person spaces to deeply connect with other open-hearted and open-minded women around this work, this is the space for you. This is the invitation. Drop down into the show notes, click the link, book a call, and let's get you inside. And I'll see you in Tuscany. Yeah.
And it's like so powerful, you know, like if if you're if you're okay opening it up, and you know that's where God shows up every time. And so I quote the song in the book, but the problem with that is that it's a song that's like on the radio. So my mom did all the editing for the book. God bless her. Thank you. Um, and she was like, you need permission to do this, to put this in the book. And I was like, how am I supposed to get permission? Like, what are you talking about? You know? So I look up who wrote the song. I know Brandon Lake is involved, but like, what are you going to Instagram this dude and get through to him? Like, good luck, right? There's three writers. I emailed all of them. 45 minutes later, I had permission.
Of course.
But like like that's God. Like
Right.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know what else. Like,
And I'm
but it's
I I'm even thinking just the way that story that you just told and the way that God was weaving long before your wife even passed away, that like
that
I
was
got the
when
news of this happening at the
5 years
elephant
before.
sanctuary 5 years before.
And it literally, I remember talking to the girl when I went back to my hometown to visit. We went and saw her and her kids and her husband, and she was like, yeah, just kind of like it was just an afterthought that I was like, I should write this. I was like, pff. I mean, I was literally sitting there and I was like, what just happened right now? Like I couldn't believe it. And so, you know, in this experience, you know, there's it, a big thing for us was with this book and with our story was like there's always hope. And like that part is such a dagger sometimes because I chose, I think that she chose to hold on to hope until just I was still hoping she was going to wake up after she passed. I mean, I was like I'm holding on to it the whole time. Like I'm not going to let go. I'm not. And I mean, for there are some days I'm still thinking she's going to come running back in the room. You know, like it's like this. And yeah, you could say like you're crazy for doing that, but it's like, yeah, but if you're not all in, what are you doing? You know, and God healed her. He just didn't heal her here, and that's hard to deal with, but it just is. And you know, and there's so much more in the story, but and that's what the book is. It's like, you know, when she passes away, it's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that people see that and walk through that, and there are so many more remarkable moments in that book that are, you know, I could talk for days and days about them. But they all kind of challenge this perspective that we all have, and I'm so happy that it was able to come together and to share her because I mean, you can see it if you watch the videos. She's like she's something else.
Yeah. It's a part of what really drew me in towards your story. As I said earlier, I'm like you landed on my feed and I went into a scroll hole and
Yeah,
just started receiving your messages and receiving those videos, and it very much mirrors like the relationship that I have with my husband, and I know the way
yeah,
that like he sees me and the way that I feel loved by that, and to like witness another man expressing that towards his wife after such a big loss and like keeping her big magnetic essence alive. Like it's not even you, it's not only you who sees it as you're posting it. It's like that's so much of the energy of what's going on inside of
Yeah.
your work, as well as the magnetism of keeping her essence like so alive and vibrant in what you're sharing.
Yeah. I ran into this thing that was, so for 5 years, she battled. So you can imagine a physical decline of 5 years. My girls are 8 and 10. So our girls are 8 and 10. So they were 5 and 3 when she got sick. So they don't have memories of mama healthy.
Mhm.
And that, of all the things, like that's just such a crime. And so what I was doing in the most selfish way and way for my kids, I was like, I'm just going to keep posting videos of her, and just whatever comes out of me in writing, whatever, I know that that will help me. And and what I started to notice was that there was probably on my personal account, which I have two different accounts, but on my personal account, I think I posted 130 days in a row, just a different video of her the whole time. And about 100 days in, I heard a song on the radio that I had paired with a video of her and I had written or whatever. And the memory that showed up in my head was the video I posted. It wasn't a memory of her ill. And I was like, maybe I'm able to like move back the memories in the queue that I don't want necessarily to have with good memories.
Mm.
And in the posting, and I can't claim like I did this on purpose because I didn't. So many people have shared, and so many people have talked about their own loss, and so many people have reminded me of excuse me, memories that they have of her. It's created this space where people are celebrating their own loved ones and their own memories, and I didn't intend that at all. Like I had not in one bit, but I've literally started to just say, "Hey, share a memory of your person with me," and people do it, and it's like I realize that as time goes on, people stop saying their name, people stop asking about them. I feel fortunate. I have a lot of people around me that are constantly checking in on me, but that's not the experience for everyone. And to have everything you had in your life poured into someone and have them taken away and then never speak of them is a prison that I couldn't imagine it. And I started to feel that I was like, I remember, I talk about this all the time, but Andrew Garfield said something. He lost his mom, and he said, grief is all the unspent love you have for the ones you've lost. And when I heard unspent, it changed everything because I thought of this huge bank account full of money that I'm just not spending it, right? Because she's not here to receive the love. And so I started to post and write and all these things, and that made me feel like I was connected to her. And so I just keep doing it because I feel connected to her, and I don't. That's why I do it, and
Yeah.
it
Such a
it helps.
such a beautiful ripple effect that I'm seeing from what you're saying come off of that though, even though it's not your like your how you said like selfishly, I just want to keep her alive and I
That's
want
it.
to
I
talk about
just
her and it's helping me.
yeah.
But then like just by being surrendered to allowing yourself to do that, that love that you're pouring into that little creation that you make, that love's reaching out to other people and allowing them then to expend
It's
their bank of love that they've
it's
been sitting on.
yeah, and it's such a gift. I have so many. I'll receive messages and whatever, and I try to reply to everything, but to experience someone else's pain is is this weird camaraderie that you get, and but it's so rich. We live these lives where everyone talks about the weather and stuff that doesn't matter, and it's like, but those moments where you connect with someone, um, I feel very fortunate because it happens over social media, so it can go further and there can be more of those. There's such rich moments, and
Mhm.
you feel like an outcast with grief because I'm always sad, always. It doesn't matter. And people avoid the conversation because they don't want to make me sad. I'm like, I was crying on the way here. Like
You
I would
can't make me
love
sad.
I love to talk about her. I just cry every time, but I love it. And so this has been a real outlet for me that's been so helpful that I couldn't imagine not writing about her. I would just it's just so fortunate that social media gives us the ability to do it and other people can share in that, you
Yeah,
know?
and that people can naturally, you just said like it's so easy for us to talk about the weather, or it even made me think about sharing each other's joy and celebrations and the good things that are happening. But we do as a society have this, I believe that it's beginning to change with social media and with this age of mental health and expression and really learning how to be in our emotions and showing all of life. But
Yeah.
it's such a gift, and it just made me think of, it's a part of why I got into the work that I do now, is to
Yeah.
be witnessed in pain and to witness others in pain and to normalize that witnessing and the connection that we can form in it, not from like a trauma bonding perspective, but like this is just as much and rich of a reality inside of our human experience as our joy and our celebration is. And for so
Yeah.
long, it's been like, nope, don't feel that. Let's only do this. And that's why
Yeah.
people get so uncomfortable when they feel like they're the thing making you sad, where it's like, no, this just lives inside me, and my ability
Yeah.
to talk about it gives me a way to release it.
Yeah. And it's this thing that I think we all deal with where when something happens to you, there's like being the victim, like you're the victim of the thing, right? Well, there's also a personal choice. You can choose that, or you can choose to, excuse me, to do something with that space you're in, right? And there's like an accountability to it. Like, yeah, it's and situations can be terrible, but there's you hold a space in the situation too. It's not like you're powerless. I think, and so all the pain is available on the accountability side of the coin. It's all there. It's not like, you sharing about your pain like gets rid of all the pain. It's still there. You can still have all the pain, all of it, but you're choosing to be an active participant as opposed to just taking arrows, and I think it's the when every morning I feel terrible, and then I start moving, and I write, and then I feel a little bit better. Still the same day, I'm still sad. One thing I've found that's been really interesting to me is because I come from the physical space, so like I had a gym in Los Angeles and have trained a lot of people how to move weights and move their bodies and stuff, and I got a weighted vest to walk with because I wasn't going out into the world. I was in my house and I was just very sad, and I didn't want to like engage with life. And I was like, I just need to like walk and breathe and like see birds and like be in the sunshine. I was like, I just need to, which is a funny place to be, but I was like, I just need to be out there. And I was like, I'm just gonna get a vest and walk for my heart, right? Just like cardiovascularly. And in that, what I found was that was a mirror to grief for me. So I was choosing the burden. So like grief feels like a burden, right? But with like the vest, I could choose it and then I could take it off when I want. But I'll tell you that there hasn't been one day that I've done that I don't feel better in my body for one, but I feel lighter in my spirit when I do it. And I'm walking down the street crying. Like I take all my all guns aimed at that time for grief. I'm like, this is the time right now. Listen to music, cry, talk to God, whatever you got to do. But I will tell you that and writing have changed everything. Nothing is fixed. She's not here. But I'll tell you that those things have been so integral in me moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't expect them. I literally stumbled into them.
Yeah. And even things like that are like I mean, all of it, right? Such a gift from God.
They are. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I would love to ask you a bit around. So I was so inspired and obviously drawn to your story, drawn to having this conversation through the content that you post. And a lot of it, it's surrounding grief, but it's also surrounding like the gifts that grief have given you. And I know the name
Yeah.
of your book is Thank You Cancer. I would love for you to dive into just some of those. some of those lessons and blessings that I'm witnessing you pour out into the world, of what you've learned on the other side of or through this experience.
Yeah, there's so many things, and they're all, like I said, they're all things I would happily give back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just, and I feel like I have been fortunate enough to just stumble through so much, and in stumbling through things, you're in new territory and you've learned things, and we don't have as much time as we think,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the truth. I never would have thought my wife would have died at 35. If you would have like put up the life stats of me and her, I would be dead. Like if you were like doing the odds. So moving forward in our lives, being engaged where we are in the moments we have with the people we have, being connected, loving those people is of paramount importance. None of the other stuff matters. The money doesn't matter. The house doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And we get so caught up in those things. And I admittedly was in the position of not having any control financially or where we lived or really anything. And God was like, here you go. And it's like proof that we focus on the wrong things. Um, and that's the biggest thing, is just being invested in your moments, because nobody says we're not going to get hit by a truck on the way out of here and be
Mm-hmm.
done. And I promise you that I had 5 years of fighting side by side with her. 15 months, I was her sole caretaker. I didn't have a job. I got fired. I was with her every single day. We went to every single appointment, did everything, wound care, everything. And the moment I lost her, my head exploded with regrets. And you imagine if that story happened and I wasn't there with her every single day, the conversation that happens in your head. And so I feel that sharing the love we had and sharing the experiences we had and sharing her creates a story that touches people's hearts and might make them change, might make them engage differently with their lives in the times they have. Because I've been the guy that was distracted. I've been that guy. The first 30 some years of my life, I would say that I lived in a very hollow way. When I met my wife, I found a depth that I had never experienced before. And I would say that for a time I was ashamed of it, but I realized it was just something that I didn't know. And because of that, the gift that she was, I feel like it's my job to share that with people, because I realize that not everyone has this experience. Not everyone has this love story. Not everyone has this. And someone asked me, if I was mad with God. I said that before, and He gave me a gift in her. The gift was 12 years for me and my family. It was 12 years. How can I be mad that it wasn't more? She was a gift. I could have just as easily not met her and found another path and just never be here today and never have experienced that. And um, she was such a gift. And there are things that I think in our lives can help us connect to ourselves and help us move forward and find out why we're here and what we're doing. And those are the things that I try to put through my content because they're valuable. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And it really hits to receive that message of we don't have as much time as we think. And I think as human beings, it's like no matter how many times we receive that message, and it's something that will like hit me out of nowhere sometimes, of like, oh my God, I could die tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
and all of the things that we put our awareness and our attention on and our fear and our stress upon. And just to reflect back to you, something that's been such a gift in the brief time that I've gotten to experience your content, order your book, and experience you in this conversation, that your willingness to grieve out loud and to channel all of this into wisdom that other people can shift their lives from. It is God creating this undeniable ripple effect through social media, through the people that this book is going to teach, through this podcast. And while I know that it doesn't take away any ounce of the pain that you're moving through, I really want to thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One thing came to mind that um, a way to engage with your life, if you find yourself not being engaged, that I came upon was, so over the course of this time, my wife, I think, came to terms with it being the end. I think 3 different times, which is a monumental task to do even one time, and to think that she's done that at least 3 times was tremendous, beyond anything I can ever imagine. But in the course of this, I was reading a book, and in the book, it suggested that you write what they call a death letter, and so I decided to do that because I was reading the book, and it's a great book. And it was speaking about how in the military, a lot of times they do this, right? If they're going to go overseas, they'll write a letter that's like, hey, if I don't come back, give this to my wife, right? So this letter is, if you don't show up for your family tomorrow and you never come home. So these are like your final thoughts. And so I took that task on and I wrote that letter to her. And this was probably in 2022, maybe. And I will tell you that if you want to change internally what's going on with you in your life, write that letter. Because imagining the things you would say to your wife or your kids or your husband or whoever is in your life, if you're not going to return home, will change how you walk through your life. And that was such a gift that time. And it took me hours, and I was just weeping, writing it. But in those words and in you doing all of that work, there's so much value in that, because if you're not engaged with your life, the work is internal, and it's someone can't tell you. Like, you got to walk through that space, and that, to imagine not being there tomorrow, and your family in pain, and that is so powerful. And I didn't give her the letter. I just kept the letter. I actually read it at her celebration, which was, I didn't intend on, but was super powerful. But that will change things. And it did for me. It made me so much more present and so much more engaged. And I don't come from a place of like saying I did it perfectly. I didn't do it perfectly. I messed up the whole time. But those are things that like focus you in, and because it's internal work that we have to do to get yourself to put, you got to be first, and then what you want follows. But that is really a game changer. And I talk about that in my content. And some people say they do it. I hope that everybody does it, but it'll change it all if you let it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's such a unique exercise where, like, the show is all about internal work and being on the path, and all of the different
Yeah.
ways that we can weave. And that's such a different perspective to take versus like, what do I want, or where am I going, and what do I need, and what are these things that I'm chasing after? Actually looking at like, what if this was all taken away from me tomorrow, and like, if my life wasn't here anymore,
Well,
how would
have
I feel
you
about that?
have you heard of be do have? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the be do have thing. It's like most people think of what they want, like what they want to have, and then because of what they want to have, they choose what they want to do, and then that turns into what they become, right? Instead of who am I, and then let the who am I inform the doing, and then the having shows up, right? It's backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much in that internal workplace, not in the external. It's like work on yourself, and there's a lot of fruit from that. But it's hard. It's unknown territory. It's emotional. There's no I can't give you your answer. Your answer is in you,
Mm-hmm.
and mine is in me. And it's like, okay, well, and that it gets dicey, but there's so much in there, and you just got to go looking. It's like being in a big cave with a little flashlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having the willingness and the courage to go in there and do it.
Yeah.
And the way that uh what was the inverted way? Do, have,
Yeah. So
be, right?
there's a lot of people think like, what do I want?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, I want to have this thing.
Yeah.
So I have to do this to get that.
Yep.
And then they
And then
become
I'll,
something
yeah.
instead of like, who am I?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is my sandbox that I have my skills and abilities and what I do and where I'm at in my life. And that then informs that the do.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of that, you're fully into it. And then all of a sudden you have the things
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that come about. But it's like you could live from the outside, it could look the same.
Yeah.
But the person that is moving from their heart lives a much different life than the person that's moving for the new car.
Yep. Yeah.
And it could look the same from the outside, but it's the internal work that's so vital in that journey.
Right, because at the end of the day, you could end up having the same thing, but the way that you're feeling when you have that thing is completely different based on the
Yeah. Yeah.
route that you've taken to get there. And I see that so frequently inside of my work, as I'm sure you do as well. This is another follow-up question that's
Yeah.
coming as you're speaking some of this more wisdom and these exercises between the death letter and tracking be do have in your life. Are these things that I know you mentioned in your intake form that you're a coach. Are these things you're
Yeah.
actively working with people on today?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a journey. I think it's an invitation type scenario. Like I can't tell you to do something.
Hmm.
It doesn't work, right? You in your own way and in my own way, I had to come to a place in my life where, let's say, I was in enough pain to where I was ready to like take a journey, right? And that's the game. Because you can't you can't tell somebody what their answers are. They have to be seeking it. So kind of that's where now, like, I've been on a journey for a long time, 20 some years, since I started all this. And there are people that are looking to go on that way, right? And so that's what we work on. We work on the internal stuff
Hmm.
because it's important. And when all of the external stuff goes away, which it can, and I have my story to talk about, that it'll take you out, in in my case, that choosing a path, like we got married, I threw away the key to, like, we were a crew, right? We're a family, like we're going to the end, and then all of a sudden she's not here anymore, and I'm on the same path, and my daughters are looking at me like, hey, what does life look like? I'm like, I don't know. I
Hmm.
was with her. I don't know, because you committed to a timeline with someone, and now I'm in this space that I didn't want to be in. And who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? Like, these are big questions, and I just happen to get to them before some people do. But they're coming for you too, and they're coming
Hmm.
for all of us.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's both the pain and the beauty of the journey. I mean, completely different stories, but every person I come across that I work with, and I'm sure you see the same, is coming from their own descent into darkness or pain,
Yeah,
depression, mental health, whatever it is that causes you to really begin to look at, like, who am I, and not just what do I want in the material sense, but what do I want this experience to feel like given the cards I've been dealt. Not
yeah,
like what do I want it to be in going back to something I had before, because unfortunately we don't have that option. And what am I going to make of this now? And I truly am in like so much awe of the amount of time, like that it's only been 6 months that since she has passed, and the
Yeah.
amount that you have poured that love into your platform, and the amount that you have poured into this book. And it is just going to be such a blessing to so many people. I don't even think, like, of course, to people who are grieving and going through the same experience as you,
Yeah.
but even to people who haven't met that depth yet, to receive that wisdom and receive these little bits of knowledge that can be the thing that truly changes somebody's trajectory or puts them on a path, to really stop
Yeah.
and think like, oh my God, what would my death letter say? Or what do I
Yeah.
actually want my life experience to feel like?
Yeah. The best thing anyone ever did for me was extend the invitation
Yeah.
to take that journey, and it happens in a million different ways. But in our in our marriage, we decided that, like, their light will come from this. And so when it all went down, I just held on to that, and I was like, okay, how do I bring light from this? Because there's so much darkness, and there's so much pain, and there's so much struggle, and it's grief is so weird. It, like, some days it's not bad, and then some days it's like a gorilla tackles you, and you just have to wrestle the gorilla all day long, and you feel helpless. And I'm a fixer, like I want to fix everything, and you can't fix anything. And so I just try to focus on how can I bring light to this,
Mm-hmm.
and that connects me to her, which feels like it's a path forward, because otherwise I have no direction. And I don't want our time to end, and it has, to an extent, and it's like, it's terrible.
Yeah. It has, as it also has transformed in that story you talked about with the signs, and just
Yeah.
the way that, I mean, thank you so much for your story, and I cannot wait for the book to actually come out and to read even more of
Yeah, there's
the,
another
the
big one in there that'll blow your mind, especially you. I'm not going to tell it on here, but it will.
yeah, I want to entice our
with
listeners. We're going to definitely
with
put the
your
link.
with your interests and your background, it's mind blowing, and I'm still in awe of the whole thing.
Um, but yeah, just weaving back to that, you talking about like the light that's going to come from it, and even talking about the fact that the beauty of the light that is coming from it doesn't necessarily have to take away from the grief and the pain and the beauty that also exists in that. I don't know, I'm just witnessing as you're talking about this, like it's all happening simultaneously. When you say like some days are okay, and some days there's light, and some days there's creativity, and all of this stuff you're witnessing that's coming from this journey, and the parts and pieces you're putting together that are walking you even closer home to God. And that's like, that's just the way that life is, that it's always going to exist simultaneously alongside the pain and the
Yeah.
and the fear and the more difficult things. And I believe so deeply in I said this earlier, but like the human spirit and the power of the human spirit to actually accept that life is all of it, instead of
Yeah.
suffering in pressing against wanting it so badly to only be the light.
Yeah. And grief is kind of like music that's playing really loud.
Mm,
It's playing, like, it's always playing, and you can be pissed, and you can, like, cover your ears, or you can just dance with the music. And I've found that writing and sharing about her, and doing things like this, feels like I'm dancing in the moment. I don't like the song. I hate the song. Yet the song is playing, right? I don't have the choice of the song, right? But there is how I view my place in these events of my life, right? I do have ownership in my choices. And I still have the grief. I still have the pain. I still have the struggle. I still have my girls grieving, and there's just nothing. That's a whole nother thing to manage, and to be in, that space. And it's here, and you can hide all you want, but it's going to find you,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep. Another Incredible story that just really does speak to it. This happens all the time, that it's all happening, like it's all always happening.
Happen.
And
Yep.
that was such a beautiful, I look forward to bringing that perspective to people in my life who are grieving, that it's how you choose to dance within it, and honoring the, I hate the song, I want to turn the song off, I want to
And I'm not saying like you're dancing like having fun. I'm just saying
right.
you're like moving in the rhythm of what's going on because and yeah, like it's okay to feel broken and it's okay to feel crushed and it's okay. Like it's not something to hide. It's and that's the reason I talk about it because it helps
Mhm.
me to talk about it. Like I don't care if I'm on here with you crying. I don't care. It's better than holding it in and sitting in a dark room, and that's why I try to talk about it because I know that feeling of wanting to hide and it's so damaging. And so many people want to help. It's unbelievable how many people just that you don't even know want to help. But it's only if they know the storm. The storm inside has to be known for someone to help you. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to destroy you. And I don't know, there's so many things.
So many things, and it's so layered, and I personally look forward to hopefully continuing to remain in contact with you as the book comes out,
Anytime, anytime.
and and
It's
as you're
my
as you're
favorite thing is to talk about her. I just
yeah.
cry. It's okay.
And I am so grateful to be a space to get to
Yeah.
honor her light. And I am absolutely going to be linking not just where people can purchase the book, right? Are you still on pre-sale, or are we in regular
Yeah,
sales?
it's
Let's talk a bit about
until
that.
I get it. Technically, it's pre-sale, which is like my own personal nightmare because it's only available in the States, which is like it makes me want to pound. But and then I can't make it available um, digitally because the people that literally have purchased the book made the project happen, right? And it needs they get the books they purchased. So until August or so, it just can't be available any other way.
Beautiful. So we will
Yeah,
absolutely add the link to purchase the book. I cannot wait to receive it. I'll probably have to have you back on afterwards
let's
so we
do
can
it.
actually
I
dive
can't.
into the book
There are
after
some things that
yeah.
I want to talk to you about when
Yeah,
after you read
after I
it.
read it. But we'll put that link down there. I highly encourage anybody who's listening to this right now. I'm going to put the link to your Instagram. Just like go and take that same scroll hole that I did, because there is such a wealth of depth and open-hearted connection that is coming through the content that you were putting out to the world. And like,
Yeah,
it has been such a gift to receive that magnetism and that bigness of your wife's essence and your words and your love around her. Thank you so much
I appreciate
for
that.
sharing that out into the world. And if you have any other links or the ways that people can work with you, I'm sure that there are so many people listening who are going through their own rendition of grief, or diving into the journey, or ready to write that death letter. So I will make sure
Yeah,
to put all of that down
I
below in
think
the show
my
notes.
Instagram is probably the best place to do it, and I will respond everything I can respond to. I do every once in a while. I miss comments. I try not to, but if you send me a DM, I'll get it because
Okay.
I respond to all of them
Yeah.
as best I can. But the DMs, I get to all of them. So if you want any whatever, just please send me a DM, and I'm happy to talk about any of it or share or be helpful in any way that I can.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much again. I can't say it enough. Thank you for your story, your strength, your heart, your grief, your pain, all of it, and sharing it with the world and sharing it with me today on this podcast. And we're definitely going to do a round two after the book comes out. I mean,
That'd be great.
because
That'd be
I'm
great.
sure
Yeah.
I'm going to need somebody to bounce off the, like, oh my God moments I had from that one story that
It's
you
a it
you
is
brought
a
through.
it is a dense, like there is a lot of heart in that book.
Yeah.
I remember when my parents were reading it, they were like, I had to like read 5 pages and put it down and like process because it's very, the journey is, there's so much to it. And the amount of just physical suffering my wife went through is hard to even imagine. And
Yeah.
I I try to do a good job of making, it just appropriate, but I want people to understand like what she went through because, she couldn't sit down for 2 years.
Mm.
Like she laid on her belly in bed for 2 years. So things like that are shocking to think about. Like you can't sit, can't ride in a car, you can't, I mean, like and she still was a loving mother, a loving wife. Like what is happening? I mean, they're just, it's unbelievable. Like, and people would always tell me like, you're so strong. And I'm like, you don't know what I watch every day. Like she is strong. She is resilient. Like I'm just here with like, how could I not show up? Like you should see what she does every single day.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm in awe of her. And, so I just want people to know the story because there's a lot of stuff that even, friends of ours, I am not one to complain. She is not one at all to complain. And so a lot of things just never even were known. And I was like, I'm telling her story.
Yeah.
Because it's remarkable.
A hero's journey, truly.
But yeah, I mean, she's mine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I feel like I just keep saying this over and over and over again, but thank you and thank her.
Yeah.
Your love, your marriage, your story, the way that God has weaved through. I mean, I know we've talked so much too. I just want to like take a moment here as we wrap up. We've talked so much about like your grief and your strength and your resiliency and all the beauty that's come through that. But thank you for bringing that here and placing that here, that like all of that strength, the emotional strength it takes to do what you are now doing was forged off the back of having to witness the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual
Yeah.
strength of that woman.
Yeah.
May God bless her soul.
I'm pretty sure she's sitting there with him right now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank
You're
you for
welcome. Thank
saying
you
yes
for
to
having me.
this.
It's an honor.
Thank you for blessing the ears of my listeners. Every single one of you who is listening right now, just go buy the book because we're going to do a round 2. We're going to have a little book club about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you are feeling moved by this story, connected into this story, just reach out to Danny in any of the ways. We're going to put all the links down below. And like he said, just reach out on Instagram. He responds to all of his DMs. It's how he ended up on this podcast. I literally went through a scroll hole and was just like, hey, I'm going to buy your book. Hey, do you want to be on the show? And then this is how this weaves to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I can't, that's all I can say. I can't thank you enough. I'll see you guys.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We will talk soon.
Yeah. I'll see you guys on the next episode.